Good morning everyone. Welcome to the Hindu analysis of 15th May 2024. Again, before I begin with the announcement, begin with the discussion of today's news analysis, let me remind you that today we are going to start the free crash course on this channel exactly at 7 p.m. Today there is a class of polity, and from here onwards for the next almost a month, every day at 7 for a 1.5 hours, almost about that period, this crash course would continue. The teachers would be guiding you through the MCQs of the past 12 months. So all that would be done from today onwards. So this is very, very important announcement. Do remember, do attend the session. Okay, let's begin with the topics that we are going to discuss today. The first one is Candid notes on NHRC's status deferral. Now, if you all remember, yesterday only we have done this. Today there is an editorial on this. We shall look into that editorial. Number 2, India-Iran 10-year pact on Chabahar faces potential risk of sanctions. US, again, an article that we covered yesterday, and we knew US would not like this. And let us see what they are saying about this. And important for India-US relations, of course India-Iran, and also India-Afghanistan. So we shall look into this article. Third, rise in public health spending due to states, not center. A very good article and gives a lot of facts, and I have written all the observations for you. You can go through those observations and you can use them in your any question on health. Fourth, China-Myanmar module of NSCN-IM held banned outfits in Manipur. That's NIA. They have filed a charge sheet, and there they are accusing the NSCN-ISEC Muya group that they have helped the banned outfits in Manipur. So most of these things you have already studied, but then 1 or 2 points we shall see here also. Beyond these 4, more solar storms brewing after last week's aurora as sun wakes up. Now, personally, I thought this is one article which can be very, very important for your science and tech. Too many things for prelims comes from here. I will teach you this, but I will urge you to read this entire, I would say, your topic on your own again later also. Similarly, NISAR satellite can monitor tectonic movements accurately. Now, this is an interview of which we shall be seeing, and again many important facts will come out from here also. The other third and the fourth ones are not that important topics, but then pine needle power projects to check forest fires prove inadequate. So something which was very innovative, which was being done in Uttarakhand, proves that it's not that beneficial. Lastly, there is a picture, the big shot, we shall see that also. So these are the things that we are going to see in today's lecture. Let's start with the first topic. Candid notes on NHRC's status deferral, written by Mr. Vivek Kajju, who is a retired Indian Foreign Service officer. Now basically, yesterday you all have studied. I have already told you yesterday that NHRC had been informed last week that its status has been deferred for 1 more year. Who has done this? Yesterday only we saw that this deferral has been done by Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institutions, in short GNHRI. Now, there were many international agencies which were saying don't defer it only, rather they were saying that downgrade it to category B. GNHRI did not downgrade our situation, this thing, but then they did defer this for 1 year. Of course, this is not something very good for our government, and yesterday also we saw that the former Supreme Court judge, Mr. Justice Arun Mishra, who is presently the NHRC chairperson, and of course the government of India would be unhappy with this. Of course, they would be very relieved with the fact that this downgrading did not happen. But then they are not going to be very happy with the fact that this deferral has happened, because we were continuously, arguing for our case. We had lobbied that this deferral should be removed and this cloud over our A status should go away. As you all know, next month the new government would be formed after the general elections, and also Mr. Arun Mishra, his tenure would come to an end. So he will be the first NHRC chairperson whose the entire tenure, or who would be leaving this whole organization with the sword of Damocles hanging over its head. Now, this is the introduction part till here. Now, in the second paragraph till this one, basically they have pointed out to something, that is the NHRC brochure. Now everyone, if you leave this paragraph also, not a problem, but basically in this they are talking about that the NHRC had published a brochure. This brochure was published under the title of Human Rights 75. This was a part of the celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. As a part of that, this was being celebrated here. Now, in this article, the writer, Mr. Kadzu, says that some good things were mentioned in the introduction of this. Number one, they said that India is one of the earliest civilizations, and we have led the principles of HR right from day one. To substantiate that, they gave examples of ancient texts like Vedas and Upanishads. They rightly pointed out that our great ancient texts like Vedas and Upanishads have taught about the human rights. They talk about justice. They talk about fairness. All this is there in our ancient texts. But then Mr. Kadzu points out that apart from this, one more thing was mentioned, was about Manusmriti. In this brochure, it was mentioned that the Manusmriti reflected the social norms of its time, outlines principles of justice, and including talks about punishment that is proportionate to the crime. Now, Mr. Kadzu in his second and the third paragraph, in his second article, is saying that this should not have been mentioned. Because Mr. Kadzu says, for crores of Indians, this book is the fountainhead of all the discrimination that has taken place in our country. Evil of discrimination in the past. This, he says, is the fountainhead of violence. So, Mr. Kadzu's point is, mentioning this in NHRC brochure was something which was not absolutely correct. Sorry. Just a second. Was not absolutely correct. So that's one part of this. Now, second part. And again, I'm telling you everyone that if you leave this red portion also, which I have done, not a big problem. But this is the crux. Now, in the third part, he is talking about drifting away from Paris principles. Now, what exactly is Paris principles? That's very, very important for us. And let me take another color of the pen. Okay. Number one, adopted in the year 1993 by UN. The NHRC stated that the Paris Principles set out 6 main criterions that NHRIs are expected to meet. Now, please remember, There are 6 criteria for our exam purpose for prelims. You have to remember this. And if you can remember the 6 criteria, it would be great. What is the first criteria? Mandate and competence. The second one, autonomy from government. The third one, independence guaranteed by a statute or constitution. Fourth is pluralism. The fifth is adequate resources. The sixth is adequate powers of investigations. Now, why our status is being deferred? Our status is being deferred because the committee feels that the NHRC India compatible with these criterion and so gave it A status. But now they have some doubts about this. They are having some doubts with regards to this, that perhaps we are not following all this. Now let me tell you, this is not for the first time when it has happened. Even as early as 2017, SCA had put NHRC under the deferral category. But next year, they removed it and brought us back into A status. NHRC India had in those days also, gave a lot of importance to this A status. But again, our position being doubted clearly shows that the NHRC has not conducted it in the best possible manner, which has compelled this committee, the international committee, to put us in the deferred status. Now, this is the point, this is the part that you should remember for pre and as well as the mains. Now, one very important fact that the last paragraph Mr. Kadzu mentions is that when you talk about this evaluation process, this is a peer-reviewed evaluation. So, GNHRI, they do this peer review, and that's why the government cannot dismiss it. In the last few years, according to this article, since 2019, there has been a lot of criticism of the present government with regards to human rights situation as far as India is concerned. Our ministries have been very combative with regards to this assertion which is being made by outside countries, and our foreign minister Mr. S. Jaishankar has been specifically very, very sensitive to the charges of outside agencies as far as Mr. Modi's government is concerned, saying that they have curtailed the civil liberties, they have failed short when it comes to fundamental freedom. But then those criticism and this status being deferred for another year is very, very tough, because you can understand this is being done by peer review, and that's why you cannot criticize it and you cannot cast it aside. So that's why Mr. Kadzu says that there is a lot of things that NHRC needs to introspect about its working. The attitude of the government towards NHRC is something that has to be looked into. Doubts have arose because of the nature of the appointments, plus the fact that there has been a lot of vacancies in NHRC. They all have contributed to this. If you all remember yesterday when I was doing this article, there also I said the reasons that they had cited was that there is lack of transparency in appointing members to NHRC. Appointment of police officers have been done to oversee human rights investigation. There is a lack of gender and minority representation on the member panel. Let me tell you, and this you can study on your own, even when Mr. Justice Mishra was being appointed, there were lots of hue and cry which was made at that point of time by the opposition, and they had cited some of his earlier judgments when he was the Supreme Court judge, and they had objected to his name. So the opposition had claimed this earlier also, and now maybe, I'm not saying exactly on him, but then these peer committees, they are saying that there is a lack of transparency as far as the appointments are concerned. So clearly the government has to look into this, and we would not like to be in this deferred status or in category B. Nobody likes to be in those places. So that's something that the government needs to look into. Today's mains question is about human rights. NHRC only, 2021 mains question in polity came from this area, so you should be knowing about this in a very good manner. Moving ahead, Chabahar. As you all can see, yesterday we have done a 10-year pact with Iran. Invariably, you know, US and Iran, their relation is not that great. This is not a great relation. Whereas India has a very good relation with US, and we have always balanced our relations with China also, with Iran also. Now, when we have signed, we both have signed this 10-year agreement. Yesterday only we studied. Under this agreement, now Chabahar port would be developed by India. US is saying that this can come under sanctions. Now, if you all remember, this is not a new news. Yesterday only we studied. As early as 2016, our Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Modi had gone and he had inked this deal. So what is new about this? Basically, the new thing is, last time in 2018, when this was done, in 2018 we had got a waiver from USA. Please remember, in 2018, the government was of Mr. Donald Trump. And at that moment, a special exemption was made for India. Everyone, what was this special exemption? US had made a clause known as carve-out clause. This carve-out clause was in Amendment to Iran Freedom and Counter Proliferation. This was signed in November 2018. Under this, basically, there were two exemptions that were given. So you all can understand, US has put blanket bans. Anyone who is doing business with Iran or any of their agencies, they would be banned. But under this carve-out clause, there were two exceptions, and let me change the pen color. Two exemptions were given to us. What were the two exemptions? One, if there is a humanitarian aid which is being given to the Iranian people, that comes under the exemption. So if you are giving a humanitarian aid, no problems. Second one, let me write here, if the assistance is for Afghanistan. Now you can understand. Let me elaborate on this slightly more here. You all can understand. Assistance for Afghanistan. Those days, please remember, the government in Afghanistan was not the Taliban government. It was the government of Mr. Ghani and all. And that's why this exemption was given to us at that point, because if we are doing a reconstruction and for that we have given assistance, or we are doing economic development for Afghanistan, it was all felt that it is in the national interest of USA. So you can understand why these two exceptions were given in those days. You can understand, if there is a humanitarian aid to Iran, that's point number one. And point number two, if we are doing something which will help Afghanistan, and Afghanistan, you all know, had a government which was supported by US in those days. So US felt if India is doing anything in this case which helps reconstruction of Afghanistan, ultimately what does it do? it does the economic development of Afghanistan only, which is in the national interest of Afghanistan as well as USA. So they had exempted this. Though I must mention there was a third exception also. That was a 6-month waiver as far as the oil imports were concerned. That ran out in 2019, and since then India has adhered to zero out demand which US had made. So we are not purchasing the Iranian oil over here. So let me, I have written all these things here. Yesterday also we have read this. You can see, yes, here 14th May only we have signed this port operation pact. Now you can see what is our plan. We are planning to approximately invest $120 million in equipment for the port, and we'll also give a credit window of $250 million. And as you can understand, this two things that we are planning to do are coming under the scanner of the US government, because they are not now ready. These exemptions that they had given to us in 2018, they are saying that they would not be extending these exemptions that have been given. What we have till now done, we have thus far managed operations at this Chabahar Shahid Bashiti terminal despite all the sanctions on any company which is dealing with Iran. How did we do that? I told you that in 2018, November 2018, a carve out was made by the previous government of whom? Mr. Donald Trump. And under this was considered as a great success for Indo-US diplomacy. It was a great success for India's plan to help the then democratic government in Afghanistan, not the present day Taliban government. Now under this, I have already told you guys, you can see here, Iran Freedom and Counter Proliferation Act, IFCA. This is, let me just do one thing. Just a second. It has gone down. Yeah. You can see here the two exemptions were, one, if the aid is for the Iranian people, humanitarian aid, and if it's an assistance for Afghanistan. But now, yesterday when the US authorities were asked about this, they said that they would not be making any such exemption as of now. We are studying their reaction to this, and we are trying to understand whether it would have any impact on US position on our future dealings with Chabahar port or not. So that's the second topic of the day, very, very important from the perspective of international relations. Moving to the third topic. The third topic is, you can see page 7, Health GS paper 2, and some again observations in the form of chart. And here you can see there are 6 charts. Chart 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 charts that have been made. I have given you the observations here based on this chart, so don't worry, all these observations are mentioned, very, very good observations. For example, let me read it out for you and then let me explain. In the chart number 1, the one observation has been made that Bhutan's spending is 2.5 times than India. Sri Lanka is spending 3 times than India. BRICS nations spending 14 to 15 times more than India. Whatever public spending has increased during COVID-19 was mainly because of states and union territories. On the other hand, union government spending on health as a percentage of GDP has increased only moderately during the pandemic and has come down post-pandemic. Significant part of the increase in health investment as a percentage of GDP during the pandemic needs to be attributed to the negative and low growth of GDP, while absolute increases has remained modest in real terms. More concerning is the decline in share of resources transferred to the states by union health ministry, etc., etc. These are the major observations. Let me give you other points and I'll explain those points also. As you all know, first of all, please understand, historically, It's not about present day government. It's always been the fact that the governments, their spending as far as the health in India is concerned, traditionally it has always been low. You can understand, most of the people say that it has usually been around 1% of GDP. At max, if it has gone under the current regime, it has come close to 2% of GDP. So from there the question comes that earlier this number would be close to 1%. Present regime has brought it to close to 2%. So this increment that you are seeing, should this be attributed to union government? Is it because of union government that this has happened? Because you all can see traditionally our expenditure when it comes to health sector has been very, very poor, abysmal. And if this has risen, it's because of states, not because of center. These are some observations that they have made at the very beginning. And now comes the charts. Everyone, let's see the first chart. This chart compares per capita public spending on health with other countries. 2021, India is at 25, Bhutan is at 69, Vietnam 74. You can go to China, that is at 363. If you all see here, the first observation that we all talked about, the comparison has been made with Bhutan, has been made with Sri Lanka, and BRICS also 14-15 times. So if I tell you absolutely correct comparison in the sense that yes, when India is at 25, Bhutan is 69, which is more than 3 times. Sri Lanka is 77. Bhutan is close to 3 times. Sri Lanka is 77, which is more than 3 times. And of course, China, which is a part of BRICS, their number is more than, if I say, 14 times. Now trust me, when you write this, of course, the numbers show that, but I would say we should not compare ourselves to Sri Lanka and to Bhutan. Of course, you can compare if you want, but look at the size of our nation and look at the size of theirs. Of course, Brazil is 347, almost 14, South Africa 352, almost 14. I understand how the comparisons are being made, but then there is no denial to fact that our expenditure is very less. But then think about this, China, think about the other BRICS countries as far as Southeast Asia is concerned. Yes, there also we need to increase, but then, you can understand those are smaller countries, the number average wise would go up, but then overall it would be down, in real terms. Second chart. Everyone, union government and state spending as a percentage of GDP. You can see states, this bluish line that you are seeing, this bluish line is way, way above than this reddish line of the union government. And if you see, this difference is only increasing. Earlier, it would be this much. It has only increased. So if you all see the second observation, let me take white. The increase in public spending on health in recent years can be attributed to states and UTs, and that we can see from this that the states there, this thing has gone up. On the other hand, as far as the central government is concerned, this has gone slightly lesser. So contrast to this, union government spending as a percentage has increased moderately but decreased post-pandemic. So the second thing that they are saying is whatever increment you are seeing, it is mainly because of the state governments, not because of the central governments. That's the second observation that they have made. Third chart, if you all see, the third chart talks about, let me take a black color. The chart shows the government spending on health from 2019-20 in crores. Everyone, what here you were seeing was in the form of percentage. Now in the actual crore, how much it is being spent, you can see 71,000 crore, 82,000 crore, 83,000 crore. This is the year of 2021, 21, 22. And you know, when Corona had started, and then it has gone down to 72, 74, and again it has come to 77. So the third observation is, in real terms, in actual numbers, this increase is only modest. In GDP percentage wise, there is a modest increment, and if you compare from 21-22, this has only gone down. So that's your third observation. I've written that. You can see here. Significant part is a percentage during the pandemic needs to be attributed to the negative and low growth of GDP. So the absolute increase in expenditure has remained modest in real terms. The fourth point that they are saying, the fourth point that they are raising here is, see here, share transferred to the state, I'll take black color, by the Union Ministry of Health and, Union Ministry of Health. So, from the peak of almost 76% in 2013-14, chart 4 says that almost in a decade, it has come down to only 43%. So they are saying that this fourth chart is very, very concerning chart. You can see here, the resources that are being transferred to the states have gone down in a considerable manner. So while earlier 3/4 of the expenditure on health would be done by the states, during NDA government, it has continuously kept on declining and it has come to 43%. Now, this trend, according to them, reflects the centralization of financial resources that are allocated to health. Apart from this, look at the fifth chart. If you all see the fifth chart, again, let me take black pen. Government expenditure on NHM, National Health Mission. Now you can see in 2013-14 it had gone to 18,039, around the same it has remained. Then it has gone up, again came down, gone up, and after that this is slightly coming down. Now if I make this here only, basically your chart 5 says that NHM, which is very, very crucial intervention by the union government, but then the expenditure on NHM has come down in the last 7 years. So that's another thing that they are saying. The last one, union and state spending on government funded health insurance in crores. Yes, that has gone down very, very substantially from 4757. You can see here, it has come to 10,414. What is this? You all have studied. If you don't remember, this is basically Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. So almost this amount has been doubled. If you look in the last 7 years, 13-14 to 19-20, the figure that we have, in 7 years, this has gone up. But they are saying the credit of this only goes to the central government Arogya scheme, and states where the fundings have gone down, they are, not getting the benefit out of this. So this is the third article. Very good article on health, gives you a lot of facts, gives you a lot of figures, gives you a lot of what I call in my words masala to write any good answer as far as the health questions are concerned. Moving ahead, let's move to the fourth topic. China-Myanmar module of NSCN-IM helped ban outfits in Manipur. Now, please, NIA has filed a charge sheet, and their charge sheet says that the China-Myanmar module of the Isaac Muya faction of the Nationalist Socialist Council of Nagaland, NSCN-IM, supported the cadres of two banned Meitei outfits to infiltrate India. Which are the two outfits? These are the two. So basically this was done to exploit the unrest that's going on in Manipur. What's the larger goal? The larger goal is to destabilize the state, to destabilize government of India and rather wage a war against them. So this is a charge sheet that was filed against 5 people who had been arrested last year in the month of July. They were planning and they had, done some violent terror attacks against the rival Kuki-Zo community. Now, please understand, Isaac Muya, you all must have studied in internal security under the, Northeast insurgency. Since many years, they have been demanding a greater Nagaland. Under this, they want all the Naga areas, whether they are in the state of Assam, Nagaland, Manipur and Arunachal Pradesh, to be brought at one place. And since 1997, Union government has signed a ceasefire with them. There is a framework agreement so that to get a political solution. This was also signed with them in 2015 during, our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi's tenure in the first NDA-1. This also has been done by them. So here, nothing much more is there which you should remember. The only thing is, these people, they are targeting, they are trying to recruit the local youth, and these local youth, they are being handed over with the firearms, they are being provided to them, so that these youth, they get involved in a war against the government of India, and they are being given training, battle training is being given, battle drills are being given to them, they are being trained in jungle warfare. All this is being done so that they can destabilize our areas. Not that important for today, but do remember this you have studied in many places and many times this would keep on coming. Now everyone, personally I would request you to read this article on your own again. More solar storms I'm sorry brewing after last week's aurora as the sun wakes up. Now, if some of you have read, very beautiful. Friday night, last Friday night it had occurred, and all over the world people could see this. The beauty of this was it was observed even in areas where usually it is not observed. This phenomena is usually observed in areas near the poles. So places near the poles, they can observe it much more easily. But it was observed even in those areas. For example, one aurora was spotted over Hanle in Ladakh, which is far away from the poles. So here also it was observed. In this article here it is written, I haven't seen anything like this in last 20 years, says Dibyendu Nandi, a space physicist at Indian Institute of Scientific Education and Research, IISER. So you can see, my second point is, remember, IISER is in Kolkata. Now, I already said this is a very beautiful phenomena. But then they create some issues. What are the issues that they create? You all can see. They are beautiful, but then these events that happen on the sun, they can create blackouts on the earth, they can knock out satellites in space, they can endanger the lives of the astronauts, they can affect space weather throughout the solar system. So these are the impacts which you can see here, which they can create. And before this last Friday, last time when this had happened with the similar energy was in 2003. both the events of 2003 and 24, they had happened when sun was nearing peak of its solar cycle. Now what is this? Solar cycle is a 11-year period during which sun, that is a star's magnetic field, they flip, that is they would change, flip. So this magnetic field flips usually happen in their cycle, which is usually of a 11-year period. Now some more important thing, you can see what is this aurora. These are created when some violent events happen on the sun's surface. They throw up masses of charged particle into space. Now after this, a geomagnetic storm happens on the earth when these particles become trapped in the planet's magnetic field and interact with atoms in the upper atmosphere. These interactions finally produce auroras. These storms, they are rare. They occur around once in a few decades. I've already said last time it occurred in 2003, and both the events had happened around, when the sun was at its peak of the solar cycle. So please remember the process of the happening of these auroras. Now in this article again I am saying read it on your own, because there are some other points also that are mentioned. Very, very important article. Almost every line seemed to be important. In this they have mentioned about a sunspot AR3664. It is written that since early May, the scientists had been monitoring this sunspot, and continuously it had been growing in size. By May 7th, it had become 16 times the shape of Earth and was beaming with a lot of magnetic energy. Now these supercharged magnetic fields in these sunspots, sometimes they disconnect and reconnect in fractions of a second. And while this happens, there is a great burst of energy that sends plumes of charged particles called coronal mass ejections into space. Please remember this term, coronal mass ejections. Now on May 10th, 3 CMEs, they had struck the earth. They happened together with solar flares, powerful flashes of radiation, and all these active events are collected under the term of solar storms. Again I am saying is, the more I read this article, the more I felt that this is one good article which should give a prelims question. If the question paper is not done, and I think it would have been already prepared for this year by now, but if it's not done, anyone who is reading this article would have found this great. So many questions can come. Not for this year, then for the next year. This is a very, very important article. So read about this. Lastly, there is a line mentioned which is not mentioned here, but I'll write CESSI, sorry, not triple, CESSI. If you know about this, it is basically Center of Excellence in Space Sciences India. Where it is? It is at IISER Kolkata. Please remember, this is the only institute in India which provides timely update about space weather. So this is something that you can also remember over here. Please read this article once again on your own, add any other point that you want. And today there was another article on space, and this is basically not an article, this is basically a interview with the ISRO chairperson. There are many questions, and out of this I felt the first question is very important. Read the question. Question is, what is unique about NISAR, NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar satellite? So the full form of NISAR, N for NASA, I for ISRO, S for synthetic aperture radar. Please remember the full form of NISAR. We are going to launch it from Sriharikota. In what way will NISAR benefit India and US? So you can see the full name only says it's a synthetic aperture radar satellite having two bands, S band and L band. Now NASA is preparing one, that is L band is being prepared by the US, S band has been made by ISRO. US will also contribute the largest deployable antenna for this. What are the benefits of this? According to ISRO chairperson, it can cover the entire Earth in only 14 to 15 days in radar, can monitor tectonic movements in centimeter accuracy. So you can understand for earthquakes how important this can be. That's why you see the headline, NISAR satellite can monitor tectonic movements accurately. The second benefit, he says, it can measure water bodies accurately, can look at water stressing on Earth wherever there is deficiency of water. Third, it can ground penetrate to a certain depth, capable of monitoring vegetation cover, snow cover. Fourth, basically looks at whole of Earth in terms of surface water, greenery, all of that, gives full coverage of the Earth 2 times in a month. That's why it's written 14 to 15 days. We can study climate change related issues, agricultural changes through patterns, yields, desertification, all that. So everyone, if you read only this much, the first question, that's more than sufficient. Because rest, it's a question answer session, it's an interview. So for example, the interviewer has asked, the Chinese sent a spacecraft to the moon some days ago to bring black soil sample. The answer is, I have nothing to say on it. Doesn't matter. Only you have to remember the Chinese sent a spacecraft to moon to collect black soil. Similarly, you can see, what have you done so far in the project? The answer is, we have realized the satellites. Currently, we are going through testing, docking on the ground. Everything has been successful. The entire mechanism, computer, everything is finally getting ready. It will go through assembly, testing flight model. Then it will go for a launch. We target it at the year end. Now, again, you can understand question that there is nothing substantial over here. Of course, they are saying US has invited our astronauts to fly to ISS. Will we be sending one? The chairperson says, yes, that's our plan. One of them would fly to ISS. We are planning that at the year end. Again, whenever it happens, we would get to know about this. So if you read this whole thing, you will find that the first question is the only important question and the last one. How about Sukhrayan project? Will the ISRO send a probe to Venus? You all can see Sukhrayan project. This is a mission that aims to study Venus, the second planet from the sun. So remember, only 2 things for prelims from this. Now the another article, not that important, pine needle power projects to check forest fires prove inadequate. Now let me tell you what it is. Basically, see here in Uttarakhand and all, you can see how the ladies have collected these pines. I have taken this image also. This is from Business Today magazine, and you all can see under this what happens is, and let me take a black or red I'll take. Locals, they collect dry pine needles, 5 to 12 tons generated per hectare per year. Great thing. 5 to 12 hectares of these pines are generated per year, per hectare. That's collected by the local people, and they bring it to gasifier. Now these needles, they are chopped into small pieces so that their density could increase, because you can understand right now it's such a big in size, but then later when it is chopped, its density would go up, and then they are fed into the gasifier. Now this gasifier, the temperature goes as high as 800 degrees Celsius to burn these needles, and above under limited oxygen supply. So more than 800 degrees Celsius would be the temperature. At that temperature it would be burnt. Limited oxygen supply would be there. Biomass is converted into producer gas, a mixture of carbon monoxide and hydrogen and methane, and the producer gas is then cleaned, cooled, and clean gas is used to run a generator that produces electricity. If you all see, it appears to be a great, I would say, bio waste being turned into electricity. The problem is, today's newspaper, they are saying that these, are not proving that successful. They are saying that these bioenergy projects that were set up by Uttarakhand Renewable Energy Development Energy to use the vast quantity of flammable pine needles for generating electricity have been unsuccessful. Why it is not a major success? Because the technology that is using pine needles isn't sustainable as of now. Maybe it's very, very costly. You know, you are involving people, collecting it, you must have paid them, then you are using this technology. It is not sustainable. In theory, the vast amount of pine needles makes a valuable resource. That's what we saw. If you use all these pine needles, it's a great thing. But then, overall, it's not helping a lot here. Even though official documents say that around 17% of Uttarakhand is covered by cheer pine forests, and 15 lakh tons of pine is generated every year. Even if 40% of this is available, it could help the state in a big manner. But then we have to bring technologies which are sustainable and could be used over here. Last topic for the day, there was a picture today. The picture says that this is a picture from Alberta Wildfire Service taken on May 10th. Smoke is rising from wildfires that are burning in Grand Prairie Forest area. Now, Grand Prairie Forest area, this is a town in Alberta. Alberta, you can see, this is Canada. In Canada, there is a state called Alberta. In that, you have a Grand Prairie. And there, this fire is happening. Please remember it for geography through map. For that, this picture I have taken. You know, China is experiencing this. China, I said. Canada is experiencing this, lots of fire here. Last thing, everyone, what is prairie? You know, it's enormous stretch of flat grassland where there is moderate temperature, there is moderate rainfall, very few trees, and you all have studied it in geography, mainly the middle of North America. You know, they are usually covered with this golden wheat covered land, which you call as prairies. In the grassland chapter, you study about this. So that was about all the 8 topics for the day. What are the questions? There are 2 mains questions. The first one on NHRC. Though the human rights commissions have contributed immensely to the protection of human rights in India, yet they have failed to assert themselves against the mighty and powerful. Analyzing their structural and practical limitations suggests remedial measures. 250 words, something similar came in 2021 mains also. Question number 2, public spending on health in India has been historically low, which hinders the efficiency of India's health systems. In the light of this statement, suggest measures to increase public expenditure on health. 150 words, 10 marker again. Very good question with regards to health. So these are the 2 questions that are for the day. That's all from today's discussion. I hope you liked the discussion. Please like, please subscribe, please comment on how did you like this lecture. And remember, 7 p.m. you are having the class for the crash course, starting with polity, class number 1. That's all from today's lecture. Thank you. Goodbye.